Hi, this is Tyler with the Emerging Civil War social media team today, and I have with me John Hennessy. John Hennessy just did a fantastic talk on the 1864 Overland campaign. We have him here just to ask him a quick couple questions. So, John, out of that talk, if you have one aspect of the 1864 Overland campaign that really speaks to you, what moment would that be?
I think, well, two. One is kind of not a moment, but a phenomenon of the Army as it moved out of the wilderness, and both armies, and realized that this wasn't ending. And the toll that just kind of relentless day after day after day, not just the combat, but the discomfort. Most soldiers have been under fire, 8 hours a year before this. And now they're on constant campaign for the next, 11 months.
Wow.
And so that creeping realization, and these men trying to kind of deal with that and understand it, and they simply could not. I mean, it was the loss of life, the suffering, the discomfort was beyond anything most of these men could ever have imagined. And it didn't stop. Right. There was no break. Other battles always followed by a respite.
Yeah.
And but there was no respite.
No, there wasn't.
And the other moment, if you will, it's not a moment, it's a day, and it's a cliche, but it is the redefining moment of the American military experience, which is the fighting at the Bloody Angle.
Absolutely.
It is a human experience unlike anything we see on any other battlefield. Right. It's unprecedented in American history. It is, on a human level, it is stultifyingly tragic.
Absolutely.
And yet, you keep wondering, so why do these men consent to do this?
Yeah.
And, I think one of the great values of these lands that are preserved as battlefield, whether they be national park lands or, American Battlefield Trust or Central Virginia Battlefield Trust, is if you stop and you think and try to kind of put all the threads together as to this human experience and the motivations and why these men are here and why they have consented to endure this horror, the answer to those questions are at these places.
Absolutely.
And the answers to those questions are incredibly important to the health of our nation, then and now.
If you could pick one place in this area in the Overland campaign, specifically Wilderness, Spotsylvania, we're talking about the opening, what would be your favorite place out of any of the ones you could think of?
So I think there are actually two, and they're very close to each other. One is there's an old woods road south of the Orange Plank Road that kind of bisected the horrible fighting in those woods on May 5th and 6th. And it's just this faint trace through the woods, but you can follow it. Most people follow it. It's a trail, but they don't know what it is.
But it's a road trace.
But it shows up in several accounts. And it's just to understand, be in those woods and understand what was going on around that spot is really, really quite affecting to me.
Sure.
But I think that of all the sites on the battlefields here, I mean, there's so many of them, but I think the one that most affects me is the one that most affects people that I take to it.
Right.
And that's Wilderness Cemetery number 2, which is this site in the woods. It's unmarked. Most people don't know exactly where it is. The only evidence of the cemetery, which the dead were disinterred or reinterred at the Fredericksburg National Cemetery, but there are rows and rows of depressions marking their former burial sites. Yeah. And this is a scar on our land, a scar on our nation. And I mean, it's visible evidence of the price and of the horror of this event. And, we talk about horror, and it's not enough to talk about horror.
Right.
I mean, it's making people feel sad is as an interpreter, as a historian, that's pretty easy to do.
Sure.
But making people understand why this matters to our nation. And that goes back to, these really fundamental things about America and, this remarkable experiment in democracy that it was. this still fragile government, this system, 87, 86 years old at the time. There was so much at stake at that time. And these men understood it. I firmly believe with all my heart that there have never been soldiers under the American flag who better understood why they were doing what they were doing and what the stakes were than the men of the American Civil War. They got the nuances in ways that most people today don't get the nuances. They would revise them after the war in their memories and becomes much simpler, much less complicated. But they got it in the real time.
It's awesome to hear that's one of your favorite sites. I've had my own powerful experiences there at Wilderness 2 Cemetery. So I mean, to hear that is one of yours too. That checks out. So we are at the symposium. I have to ask the big question. With ECW, do you have a favorite thing about the emerging Civil War? I know you've been associated with a lot of folks from emerging Civil War for a long time. So if you could pick one more moment there, like what's something that ECW
Well,
does?
I mean, for me, it's kind of a more big picture thing. It's giving people a chance.
Absolutely.
And you know, I think we can kind of probably in the real world we could stop calling it as emerging because it's pretty merged now. But the whole idea of giving people a chance who otherwise would not have their voices heard, I think that's just tremendous. And in the midst of that, you know, you've got work being done that is accessible. Much of it is new. And, you know, the Civil War publishing market has changed so much in my lifetime. Holy cow. And, you know, I had planned to write after I retired. There's not a lot of market right now for it. And, you know, the emerging Civil War is kind of the behemoth in Civil War publishing right now. And so that's a great thing. But just the fact that so many people, and a lot of them young people, have had their voices heard and have had a reason to write and to speak and to come together. Because, you know, the network of people who care about history is pretty small. And, you know, I think the emerging Civil War entity, I almost call it an empire, but an entity is a network of people who care. And, you know, I just think that that's so important to the health of the nation and this community.
Well, John, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with us and talk a little bit after your talk today. And for those watching, thank you. We'll see you online and on the battlefield.